Welcome to Let's Share, hosted by me, Leah Byers, president and founder of HANA Ministry, a faith-based nonprofit that promotes the human interaction of sharing what we have and expressing what we need. The guests in the podcast are the people who I have connection stories with and have something meaningful to share in their communities of connection. Thank you for listening. Let's share.
Hello and welcome to Let's Share, a podcast that promotes sharing. Giving plus receiving equals sharing. And my name is Dr. Leah Byers, and I am the founder and president of HANA Ministry that inspired starting this podcast. And this month, again, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the foundations of HANA Ministry and sharing, and giving you a little more detail on the title of the organization and some things to think about, and why sharing is actually something we really should be focusing more on as we progress. So starting out this time, we're going to be talking about the HANA Ministry title inspiration. And when I share the name of HANA Ministry, it usually takes a moment for people to understand the phrasing. And sometimes they can't quite catch it. It's really have, H-A-V-E, the letter A, need, N-E-E-D, another letter A, and ministry. So HANA Ministry. So where did I get that? Well, back in my teen years, we lived and went to a 7-Eleven that was very close to our home very often. That was just the thing to do back then. And whenever you shop back then, not as much today, you use cash quite a bit. And cash being more commonly used means you also had to have coins and change and things like that. So change coins were simply part of the deal. And instead of breaking another dollar or being short of a cash payment at the store, there was a little small dish that they left right there by the cash register. And it said, if you have a penny, leave a penny. And if you need a penny, take a penny. And usually there were pennies sitting right in that dish. And that's really core sharing. And when you talk about it being money, that's actually pretty awesome that they came up with that idea. And I was actually at another type of store like that recently and saw the same dish sitting there. And you may see it in the post for this podcast. Another element that is kind of a coincidence, or maybe one of God's little miracles, is the acronym for HANA Ministry is HANA. And in 1 Samuel 1, 9-28, we learn another amazing example of sharing. And ironically, the person involved's name is Hannah. So I'm going to read to you some of the sections of that. Eli the priest was sitting at his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle, and Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. And she made this vow, O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, that I will give him back to you, and he will be yours for his entire lifetime. And as a sign that he has been dedicated to the Lord, his hair will never be cut. Now, there's a few more verses between verses 9 and 10 and 11. And so we're going to skip down to verse 24. When the child was weaned, because she'd had the child, Hannah took him to the tabernacle in Shiloh, and they brought along a 3-year-old bull for the sacrifice and a basket of flour and some wine. After sacrificing the bull, they brought the boy to Eli. Sir, do you remember me? Hannah asked. I am the very woman who stood here several years ago praying to the Lord. I asked the Lord to give me this boy, and he granted me my request. Now I am giving him to the Lord, and he will belong to the Lord his whole life. And they worship the Lord there. So Hannah shared with the Lord because he shared something that she desperately wanted. And I just thought it was amazing that when I really looked at the acronym, it was HANA. So this is HANA Ministry. Another thing that I like to talk about is that question of how we can deal with the problems highlighted in the news that affect everyone's lives daily. And there's just a few things that come to mind. The headlines are always filled with words and phrases like inflation, unemployment, the bear market, or right now a bull market, just depends. We never know. It's uncertain. Unaffordable housing and supply chain issues. These issues are concerning to everyone, and the raising of interest rates, the layoffs, especially in some bigger companies, the new laws that are coming in, and policies do not solve the day-to-day individual problems because of these issues. The humans on the day-to-day basis are the ones that we just have to react to them, but they don't really solve the situation. But what can? Sharing. In fact, we have an opportunity, no matter what circumstance we're in, to share. We have things that we have to offer, and at the same time, there are things that people can offer to us, and we have to be willing to receive. And that can be everything from food, money if we have it, our time, our talents, our skills. And sometimes it's good counseling. In a multitude of counselors, there is safety. So providing and sharing ourselves with others is a core to how we can succeed in difficult seasons and even in great seasons. Sharing is what makes them successful. So another scripture that really comes to mind comes from Acts 4, and it's verses 32 to 36. And the title of this verse is Sharing in All Things. In verse 32, now the multitude of those who believed were of one heart and one soul. Neither did anyone say that any of these things he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common. And with great power, the apostles gave witness to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ, and great grace was upon them all. Nor was there anyone among them who lacked, for all who were possessors of lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of the things that were sold and laid them at the apostles' feet, and they distributed to each as anyone had need. And I think it's really awesome to see that sharing was just a core thing for new believers in that time. They had one heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their own possessions were theirs. And we have to recognize that there is nothing that we have that we get to take with us when we go on to eternity. And so we have to really consider the things that we have and the things that we can share, because there may be things that are sitting in a closet or an attic or in a garage that have been sitting there for more than a year that we've never touched, and that we probably won't touch for another 10 years. And there might be somebody that needs it right now. So we have to consider those things. They shared everything that they had. And I think that's a really major part of what it means to be a part of this, and that no needy persons are among them. Wow. Wouldn't that be a great world that we could live in? And in our communities, there are so many wonderful organizations that are doing their best so that there are no needy people. But there are still, and some of that is our willingness to share. But we also need to recognize that sharing is not just for those that are in poverty, it's just in general a human responsibility. No matter where you are, you have to focus on what's in front of you. And whoever is put in front of you is who you may be required to share with and receive from. So I think that's a wonderful thing to consider in this kind of mentality. The other thing is that my hope is that people will continue to join one or more of the social media options for Have a Need a Ministry. Have a Need a Ministry has a main page on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And those are where I just post the podcasts, and there's some other things that are just general information about the organization or other organizations. And there are also some groups that are in social media, specifically in Facebook. There is one, Have a Need a Ministry Miami, and there's a Have a Need a Ministry Ocala, Central Florida. And I'm open to having more groups And if someone's willing to learn and help in sharing the posts and encouraging people to share information like safety or local and free events, including church, community things that are going on with the city or county area, job opportunities. I've posted all kinds of job opportunities for people that could be local, could be regional, could be federal. And there are needs out there. And it's not just that the people inside the group might need that information, but my encouragement is those people that are in the group share it in their scope of influence. That is what I hope to do. Recently, the Miami-Dade Parks just joined Have Anita Ministry in Miami, and that was really awesome because now they're sharing their posts inside, and that's what I'm hoping to see more of, that organizations will feel comfortable sharing in those groups and trusting that the people in the group will share it amongst their people that they're influenced by. There are other things to share, like volunteer opportunities. Sometimes people have requests for things or they might be able to share something in there. And that is something that we need to consider when that comes up. You do have to be careful in those things, but it is definitely something that's an opportunity. The whole purpose of just encouraging sharing is for us to just think about it as a means of how we should be functioning. And sometimes we think we're sharing, but we don't always share in the best way with the right heart. And just knowing that because we've been able to experience such grace, and that the grace of our God and providing like he did for Hannah is something that happens to us all the time. And maybe we don't recognize it. Maybe we don't even notice it. But if we really stop and think about the grace that we receive all the time from God, why would we not want to give back and share? And that would be something that God would want us to do. So I just like to encourage people in doing that. And I'm really hoping that as you listen to these podcasts, as you maybe get involved in social media, that you share amongst the people that you have influence with. And it doesn't even have to be part of Have Anita Ministry, just in general, just be inspired to do it and know that you are doing something that is for the purpose of how you've been designed as a human. So we have such privilege to be able to do that at whatever level we are. There are some people that maybe only can receive right now, but I've noticed, and I'm sure others have, that sometimes when you get to serve somebody that has nothing to offer, there is such a gift in that. And it's such a privilege to be able to do something for someone that really can't contribute back at that time, but it actually grows and helps us learn. And you may have heard this in a previous podcast, but one of the most inspiring people for me to start Have Anita Ministry was my mother. And she was just a woman of tremendous grace and love. And she would give you the shirt off her back because that's the kind of person she was. And we all had our challenges as kids and even growing up as adults, but our mom was always there for us, and we could always count on her love and rely on it just unconditionally. And she, in serving in church, became involved in the benevolence ministry, and watching her become engaged in that and seeing her do things like provide an iPad to a little boy who was in a child home and spending time with him, how she went to a library one time to start teaching an adult man who had a learning disability more opportunities to read, and then introduced him to me, and then I was able to get him into a position that he kept for many years and kept going. And it transformed his family to have that opportunity. So I really see the opportunities because my mom modeled it for me. And we have such a tremendous opportunity to model sharing to our family and to our community as well. And so I really want to encourage you to think about how you can share more and more. And also, again, in sharing, remember that that is also receiving. That if somebody's willing to do something for you, consider if you should be saying yes, because there are some times that I've encountered people that you would think, oh, they're only people that we serve. And then they turn around and they want to do something for you. They want to give you something. They want to even give you a hug or You know, it could just be anything. Be willing to receive, and knowing that that is also something that we need to learn to do, is receive a sharing opportunity from somebody. And it makes them feel better. And actually, it benefits us as well. If they've thought about us to share with, it shows that they care. So, again, just want to keep encouraging people that giving plus receiving equals sharing. And I thank you so much for listening to this brief podcast today. And I hope that you have a wonderful day considering how you can share more.
Thank you for sharing your time listening to this Let's Share podcast. Our hope is that you receive some inspiration to give and receive, because giving plus receiving equals sharing. If you want to learn more about Have a Need a Ministry, go to haveaneedaministry.com. Look forward to connecting soon.